Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. He's Paul Ogden.
He's Mark Spall.
This is December 29th, 2012. It's our third segment of our show today. Next week, we will be streaming live on audio on Indiana Talks. That's on 365 Live, or is it Live 365?
One of those. Who knows?
You just Google it and it'll tell you. Is it Live 365?
If you just go to indianatalks.com, there'll be a streaming little thing right there.
And you can catch this show later in the week on Indiana Talks. There are a bunch of other shows that are on there. Gary Snyder's show is on there. Gary has started this network that it's a statewide network, obviously, Indiana Talks, but anybody on the internet can access it, so we'll be on that starting next week. This segment, we're going to talk about the top stories and events of the year. One that I want to note before we go any further is Indiana swore in the second justice, female justice, on the Supreme Court of Indiana in our history. People have been waiting a long time for another woman to be appointed to the court. We were one of only 2 states that did not have a woman on our highest court. So Justice Loretta Rush was sworn in yesterday, and that's a big milestone in Indiana.
I think that also touches on the hell of a year Mitch Daniels has had in his lame duck year. I mean, he's had, in this year alone, he has had 2 Supreme Court appointments. He got to appoint a Secretary of State, which is a separately elected executive position at the state level.
I don't think it was this year, but...
Pardon?
I don't think it was this year, was it?
No, that was the appointment for Secretary of State was this year.
I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was after Charlie White's trial.
Yeah, it was after Charlie White's trial and conviction, because he hadn't resigned before he was convicted.
But I didn't think that was this year. But.
He had a Supreme Court at the tail end of 2011 as well, and he also has made several low-level board appointments as he's still going out of the administration. So he's really crammed a lot into his year to not make it a completely lame duck. He still holds a lot of power, even though as he's going out of politics.
And I should point out, though, it's on a national level that we now have 20 U.S. senators who are women, and we have one African American who's a Republican
from South Carolina.
From South Carolina, yeah.
And South Carolina missed the opportunity to appoint Stephen Colbert.
And they also missed the opportunity to appoint their own governor. Nikki Haley decided to not appoint herself. Very wise move, honestly.
And Charlie White did step down this year. It's 2012.
Okay. Not voluntarily.
Well, because he was convicted.
Yeah. Other big stories this year. Obviously, the presidential race. Do we need to beat that?
I think that's... I think that's a big story. I know that some of the lists have other stories, number one, but the fact the presidential election for 4 years, and but as I said in other venues, it was a status quo election. We elected the president re-elected the president, but not by a large margin. Same Senate, Democrats control the Senate, Republicans control the House. They lost a few seats, but really there wasn't much change.
I don't know if it was really a status quo election. I think the edge gives slightly more, I don't want to say to the Democrats, but maybe to more left than right, because if you look at overall, 3 states legalized same-sex marriage. One rejected a marriage definition amendment. Alan West, who has huge name recognition and had $1 zillion to spend on his re-election campaign, lost to a underfunded Democratic opponent. And
Michelle Bachmann
came pretty close to losing. So I don't know. I mean, the Republicans still hold a huge majority in the United States House.
Also, marijuana was fully legalized in 2 states.
In 2 states.
Yeah, I think those are inevitable trends. The same-sex marriage and marijuana.
Some of those are inevitable trends, but one thing that is possibly being missed with this election is that we're almost living in 2 completely different countries right now. You and I, as I recall, both agreed that Mitt Romney was going to win the election.
No, I did not.
Okay.
You were out there on a limb by yourself, Jeff, on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I didn't think it was much of a limb. But then it's because I was in an echo chamber. And a lot of people are in echo chambers on both sides of it. We only listen to the things that reinforce
I predicted
the
Democratic Party would get 53 seats in the election. That afterwards,
yeah, I predicted like 52, so I'm not sure.
See, I was one better than you.
All right. But it's this was a common theme on the Republican side for Mitt Romney, is that they said that the polls were skewed in favor of Obama and that Romney was going to win, and that they pointed to all these and I was guilty of it.
Well,
I admit this. I was in an echo chamber.
I think that there's an interesting story that came out from Anonymous, like 2 weeks after the election, and Republicans were saying, they couldn't believe what had happened, and Karl Rove on the air acted like he couldn't believe what had happened. And Romney was described as being genuinely shocked that he had lost. And they were talking about.
I'm not surprised about that, because if you're a candidate for office at that high of a level, you feel the momentum and stuff. Like, you see the crowds you're speaking to. I'm not going to blame Mitt Romney for thinking he had a chance.
But they were talking about that Orca software program that they had, and Anonymous came out and said, because they had 30,000 people with iPhones and laptops that were supposed to be in precincts reporting what the voters were saying coming out, and that was going to win the election for him. No, the election is won months before when you're putting money in. The only way that you'd affect the election is try to fix it somehow, and that's when Anonymous came on and said that we hacked in and prevented the Republicans from winning, which I thought was an interesting story.
Well,
he's like an internet guy.
Yeah, Anonymous, I know who Anonymous is.
Yeah. Well, there's so many people named Anonymous anymore. The Republicans had the advantage in this election because the economy's been so bad. Obama's policies are opposed by most of the people. If you pick out individuals.
Well, Republicans nominated a very, very weak candidate. They had someone who could actually connect with the working class men and women.
And there's a dispute as to that, because some Republicans say it's because Mitt Romney was too moderate, and others say, well, no, the social conservatives of the party, especially the Todd Akins and the Richard Murdochs, ended up torpedoing other Republicans across the board because of their objectionable comments about rape and abortion. And you're not going to have a resolution with those people, and I don't know if the Republican Party has a future. It is completely ineffective right now.
Well, go ahead.
I don't know if I would go so far as to say the Republican Party is ineffective or it doesn't have a future, because in 2006, people were talking about the death of the Republican Party, and in 2010 we were talking about the death of the Democrat Party.
Every election.
But there is something to be said. I think the thing that we should be looking at is what happens to these voters that voted in 2008 and 2012. Are they new Democrat voters, or are they specifically tied to Obama? Because in 2008, after Obama won the Obama for America, the Campaign for America, whatever his campaign arm is called, they were saying, oh, we're still going to be active in the off-year elections, and they sent out a couple emails, but they didn't really do any actual groundwork campaign, and of course the Democrats lost a bunch of seats in 2010.
Yeah.
And they're saying the same things now, that they're going to still be active, that they're still going to campaign and help out candidates and stuff like that. So but David Axelrod has already left the campaign. He's sitting on some not-for-profit board right now. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually do anywhere as far as organizing and helping out other Democratic candidates.
Well, I
think it's really, can a Hillary Clinton or a Andrew Cuomo or a Cory Booker energize these people who didn't vote in 2004 like Obama did in 2008 and 2012?
I think an important part of that is not just personalities, but also the body of issues. When you have a Republican Party that's rejecting immigration reform or acceptance of some kind of accommodation for people who are here, who were born here, who are part of our economy, that we can tax. I mean, and the Republican Party generally was opposed to immigration reform that was favorable to people staying here. Romney was saying he wanted people to self-deport.
Which is interesting, because the previous Republican administration pushed for comprehensive immigration reform.
But 80% of the people, according to most surveys, want the border secured first.
I don't think that should cost him.
No, I don't think it cost him either.
Long term, it could cost him.
The problem with the Republicans this time around was, number one, and this is in no particular order, but there are two things that I cite. Number one, it was just the insane comments by first Todd Aiken, which didn't hurt everyone at first, but when they were followed up by Richard Murdoch's comments on rape,
really close to
it made it look like all the Republicans were like this.
And also Santorum is Catholic, and a hardline Catholic that doesn't believe in artificial birth control, And someone asked him about that, and he's talking about it. And he what he's saying is he doesn't believe in it, but he didn't say
there are a lot of things where Santorum's out there on.
Well, he wasn't saying I want this to be the law of the land, but people took it that way.
Well, and people like Santorum and Mike Huckabee were out there backing Todd Aiken, they're backing Richard Murdoch, and it made all the Republicans look bad.
It's kind of funny because before 2008, Huckabee was actually criticized as being too moderate.
He is too moderate. He's not moderate on social issues.
On fiscal issues.
He's moderate, but he's a lefty on security issues. But the second thing is that Romney didn't really offer anything for the common people.
Didn't.
I agree.
He didn't. He didn't.
Totally agree with that.
And so when it was as though he was clueless to everyday life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and he was.
And I'm not saying Obama did offer a lot of solutions either, but you at least had his record to judge him on.
Well,
you didn't have as much to
you
judge
can point out
Romney.
one thing: unemployment benefits. The Republicans keep saying, well, the extension of unemployment benefits keeps hurting the economy because it keeps people from looking for work. If they didn't have unemployment extension, they'd be looking for work. They'd be getting jobs. There are no jobs.
Well, wait a minute.
There are no jobs. Okay,
but wait a minute. Going back to the notion that unemployment benefits being extended encourages people not to work.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Neither do I. I think that's completely unrealistic because unemployment doesn't pay that much. I was on unemployment for about 4 months in 1979, and that proportionally.
Now, Mark.
I know it's now, but proportionally it wasn't that much that much bigger. But that feeds into an economic.
But it feeds into
discussion to
they don't care. It just comes off like they don't care about the unemployed. That's what it sounds like.
And that's when we look at something like right now where they're talking about the fiscal cliff. One, I think the fiscal cliff that the way that they've created it, the way that there's this
fiscal cliff.
Yeah, that was a segue. Or segue. When you look at the fiscal.
What is this? The King's English?
Yeah. When you look at the fiscal cliff, people say, well, the stock market is going to respond. The stock market responds to things that make no sense. There's no sanity back there. So yeah, something like the fiscal cliff can scare people and throw them off. You have the alternative minimum tax that is a huge thing that could kick in and hit a lot of people. There are a bunch of things there. The Republicans are acting like they don't care because they want this core of things. It's a crisis that's made itself.
In the fiscal cliff discussion, I'm really disappointed that it's the tax rates that are getting almost all the attention, but not a lot of attention is being paid to budgets for such as the farm bill, such as unemployment insurance and stuff like that.
Oh, there is a farm cliff. There's specifically a milk cliff that's coming because if the farm bill is not passed, the milk prices are set to
and they're already going up actually regularly. I think some of the discussion around budgetary cuts is really unfortunate because if the mantra of cutting unemployment, cutting anything that's not I probably should leave this for the next segment.
This is the end of the third segment. We'll be right back with our last segment.